In the heart of the wintry wilderness, where snow blanketed the ground for months on end, lived a solitary snow trapper named Jonas. His cabin stood like a steadfast sentinel against the biting cold and swirling winds. Built from sturdy logs and topped with a thick layer of snow, it was his fortress, a place of warm refuge amidst the harsh landscape. Jonas had lived in these rugged mountains for years, mastering the art of survival. Each day demanded his full attention as he ventured into the frozen world with traps slung over his shoulder and an axe ready at his side. He knew every tree, every animal track, and how to read the sky's signals like a seasoned sailor. Wolves howled in the distance, but Jonas had learned not to fear them. Instead, he respected their wild nature. His days were filled with hard work, setting traps for fur-bearing animals, gathering firewood, and fishing through holes he carved in the ice. The cold was relentless, but Jonas wore it like a second skin. He fashioned warm clothes from animal hides and cooked hearty meals over a crackling fire. In silence, he felt at home in this frozen paradise. Despite his rugged life, loneliness sometimes crept in during those long winter nights. The crack of falling snow and the whisper of wind through the trees were his only companions. But Jonas welcomed the quiet as he prepared himself for whatever adventures lay ahead in this untamed land. A land that would soon lead him to an unexpected encounter that changed everything. One chilly morning, as Jonas ventured deeper into the snowy expanse, he noticed something unusual glinting in the sunlight. Curiosity piqued. He moved closer, his boots crunching on the frozen surface. There, half buried in a snowdrift, lay a man. Motionless and pale, his body encased in ice. Jonas's heart raced as he knelt beside the figure, recognizing the deep blue of a surveying jacket beneath the layers of snow. The man's face was almost unrecognizable, frozen in an expression of despair. Jonas could see that his hands were stiff and his lips were tinged with a ghostly hue. It was clear the surveyor had been lost here for days, possibly even longer. Thinking quickly, Jonas recalled how he had stumbled upon old maps in town that detailed the work of surveyors trying to chart new routes through these mountains. It seemed this man had ventured too far from safety and succumbed to the bitter cold. Gently brushing away more snow, Jonas assessed the situation. He could feel the chill radiating from the man's body, and it dawned on him that time was running out. If he didn't act fast, this stranger would be lost forever in the winter's grip. With determination coursing through him, Jonas knew he had to find a way to bring warmth back into this frozen figure's life before it was too late. Jonas knelt beside the frozen surveyor, his heart pounding with urgency and uncertainty. As he looked at the man's pale face, thoughts raced through his mind. Helping a stranger in the wilderness came with its own set of risks. If he attempted to thaw the man, would it endanger his own life as well? Snowstorms were common in these mountains, and time was not on his side. Yet, Jonas remembered the stories of lone travelers who had perished in the cold, their cries for help silenced by the white blanket of snow. He wrestled with conflicting feelings, compassion and caution. The wilderness could be unforgiving, and he had only so many provisions stocked in his cabin. Ultimately, Jonas' instinct to help prevailed. Images of past winters flashed before his eyes. He'd always found a way to survive, often relying on resourcefulness and grit. If he could save this man, it might mean not just one life restored but possibly companionship and information about what lay beyond his isolated cabin. He brushed away more snow from the surveyor's body, envisioning how he would build a roaring fire that could provide warmth and revive this lost soul. Jonas knew that in doing so, he'd also be risking exposure for himself. But deep down, he felt a sense of duty to extend a hand to someone in desperate need. With resolve settling in his heart, he prepared himself for the challenge ahead, to thaw another's life from the grasp of winter's hold. With determination set in his heart, Jonas stood up and scanned the snowy landscape for firewood. The deep snow made the task daunting, as each step sank him deeper into the cold white blanket. He pushed forward, feeling the biting chill seep through his clothes, but he knew that a roaring fire could mean the difference between life and death for the surveyor. Jonas spotted a cluster of pine trees nearby, their branches heavy with snow. He trudged toward them, his breath clouding in the frigid air. The first challenge was getting to the fallen branches buried beneath layers of snow. With each sweep of his arms, he cleared away the cold powder down to the rough bark beneath. After gathering enough wood for a steady flame, Jonas returned to the frozen man. He quickly arranged the kindling and larger logs in a small clearing nearby. The wind howled through the trees, adding urgency to his movements as he struck flint against steel to create sparks. Each spark flickered like hope against the overwhelming darkness of winter. As he worked, his fingers became numb and clumsy from the cold. With patience and determination, he finally saw a tiny flame flicker to life, tiny yet fierce against the biting wind. Jonah gently fed it twigs and dry moss until it grew into a warm glow that began to crackle promisingly. Now, with fire blazing bright, Jonas turned back toward the surveyor with renewed hope in his heart. He was ready to thaw the stranger's life from winter's icy grasp. With the fire crackling warmly beside him, Jonas turned his attention back to the frozen surveyor. He knew that the thawing process required gentleness and caution. Any sudden movement could cause harm, possibly forcing the man back into unconsciousness or worse. Carefully, he leaned over the surveyor's body, feeling the ice that encased him and noting how cold it remained even near the warmth of the flames. Jonas began by placing his hands around the surveyor's shoulders, trying to generate warmth slowly. He spoke softly, urging the man to come back to life, as if his words could melt the ice. Time was of the essence, yet he couldn't rush. With a small branch, he carefully scraped away bits of frost that clung stubbornly to the man's skin, being mindful not to hurt him. As heat from the fire radiated outward, Jonas moved to prepare some warm rags soaked in melted snow. He placed them on the surveyor's frozen limbs, ensuring they were not too hot to avoid causing burns. The flames danced behind him while he stole glances into the surrounding wilderness, ever aware that he was in a vast, untamed world where danger lurked in every shadow. Keeping his senses sharp, Jonas listened for the sounds of wildlife or signs of human presence, while nurturing the spark of life he hoped to revive. He maintained focus on his task as minutes felt like hours, each breath echoing with anticipation as he searched for any indication that the surveyor was beginning to thaw and regain consciousness. As Jonas continued to focus on thawing the surveyor, the peaceful crackle of the fire was suddenly pierced by distant voices and the crunching of boots on snow. His heart raced as he turned his gaze toward the sound, recognizing that he was no longer alone in this isolated wilderness. Emerging from the swirling snow were several men, their silhouettes stark against the white backdrop. They wore dark clothing and carried carbines slung over their shoulders, their faces set in grim determination. It was clear they were not here for a friendly visit. As they drew nearer, Jonas felt a chilling sense of foreboding wash over him. The leader of the group, a tall man with a weathered face, scanned the area and quickly spotted Jonas beside the fire and the frozen surveyor. "What do we have here?" he barked, stepping forward with an air of authority. "Looks like you've been keeping our surveyor warm." Jonas stood protectively by the man he had worked so hard to save, sensing that these rail syndicate men had their own plans for him. The leader's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the scene, clearly weighing his options. "We need that surveyor alive," he said tersely. "He's crucial to our operations out here." Jonas felt a surge of anxiety. He knew that these men would do whatever it took to reclaim their property. With tension mounting in the cold air, he prepared himself for whatever confrontation lay ahead, determined to protect both himself and the thawing surveyor from these new threats. The tension in the air thickened as the syndicate men eyed Jonas and the thawing surveyor with calculated intent. With every passing moment, Jonas could feel their gazes bore into him, their carbines resting heavily against their shoulders, ready to act the moment they deemed it necessary. He could sense that they saw the surveyor not as a man, but as a valuable piece of property critical to their plans. "Let him go," the leader demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you're meddling in, trapper." Jonas stood his ground, heart racing as he weighed his next words carefully. He couldn't let these men take the surveyor back into the icy depths of their power. He had fought too hard to save him. The thought of losing his new companion, the one who connected him to a world beyond isolation, fueled his resolve. "Not a chance," Jonas replied firmly, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. The leader's jaw clenched at Jonas's defiance, and he motioned for his men to encircle them. In that moment, Jonas felt an overwhelming urge to protect not just the thawing man beside him, but everything he had come to cherish in his solitary life, the autonomy to make his own choices and the warmth of newfound companionship. Each breath felt heavy with anticipation as Jonas prepared himself for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that he had to stand firm against whatever threats these men posed to both their lives. The standoff between Jonas and the rail syndicate men grew tenser, a thick silence enveloping the clearing as both sides sized each other up. Jonas felt the weight of their carbines aimed at him, but he stood tall, his breath visible in the cold air, determination coursing through his veins. "Step aside," the leader barked, his voice like ice. "We don't want to hurt you, but we will if it comes to that." Jonas tightened his grip on a nearby branch he had been using to poke at the fire, feeling its rough surface beneath his fingers. He knew he was outnumbered and outgunned, yet the thought of losing the surveyor ignited a fire within him that matched the one crackling at his feet. "I won't let you take him," Jonas declared firmly, his voice steady despite the fear swirling in his gut. "You'll have to go through me first." The syndicate men exchanged glances, surprised by Jonas's bravery. Sensing their hesitation, he quickly scanned the ground around him for anything he could use to his advantage. The snow was deep, but there were scattered rocks and fallen branches that could serve as makeshift barriers or distractions. As the leader's eyes narrowed with impatience, Jonas took a breath and made a sudden move. He hurled a handful of snow toward the men's faces, momentarily blinding them as he darted towards the cabin. He knew he needed to create distance and confusion if he was going to protect both himself and the thawing surveyor from these dangerous intruders. As Jonas rushed toward the cabin, he could hear the syndicate men recovering from his snow distraction. He knew he had to think quickly if he wanted to protect both himself and the thawing surveyor. Glancing back over his shoulder, he spotted a thick tree trunk nearby that could serve as temporary cover. Taking a chance, Jonas ducked behind it just as a volley of shouts erupted from the syndicate leader. "Stop him," he ordered. But Jonas was already formulating a plan. He took a deep breath, steadying himself as he prepared to negotiate. Peeking around the tree, he raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "Wait, let's talk this through." His voice rang out, calm but firm. The syndicate men hesitated, confusion flickering across their faces at his unexpected request. "I understand you want the surveyor," Jonas continued, trying to appeal to their greed. "But taking him by force will only lead to trouble for all of us. Why not let me help you instead? I know these mountains well. I can guide you and give you information that will benefit your operations." The leader narrowed his eyes, clearly weighing the option. Jonas sensed the chance for compromise slipping away and added quickly, "If you take him now, you risk losing everything. I can help keep things peaceful. We can work together." After a tense moment that felt like an eternity, the leader signaled his men to lower their weapons. The air remained thick with tension, but Jonas felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps he had crafted a fragile bridge between hostility and understanding. In the aftermath of the confrontation, as the syndicate men retreated, a calm settled over the clearing, and Jonas felt a wave of relief wash over him. The thawing surveyor stirred slightly beside the fire, now safe from the dangers that had loomed moments before. Jonas sat down beside him, warmth radiating from both the flames and the bond that had begun to form between them. As they shared these fleeting moments, Jonas reflected on the courage it had taken to stand up against the armed men for a stranger's sake. He realized that through this experience, he had forged a unique connection with the surveyor, one built on mutual survival and respect. It had been a long time since he had felt such a deep sense of camaraderie, an unwavering reminder that even in isolation, kindness could thrive. The surveyor's eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to gratitude as he tried to grasp what had happened. "You saved my life," he whispered hoarsely, and in those simple words, Jonas understood the impact of his actions. They exchanged smiles, a silent acknowledgement that friendship could blossom in unexpected circumstances. As Jonas tended to the last embers of their fire, he felt renewed purpose in his heart. The wilderness no longer seemed so vast and lonely. Now it was filled with possibilities and newfound connections. In adversity, he learned not only about bravery but also about compassion, the power of kindness in an unforgiving world, reminding him that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead.